I'll introduce myself again, my background and my course offerings. These are books that I've written, and this is my most recent one on quiet woodworking. This talks mostly about the transition to hand tools and the advantages of hand tool woodworking compared to machinery and power tools. Of course, there is a intermediate hybrid stage, and this is my journey from my former high-tech career of 30 years to my woodworking furniture making career. This is starting a woodworking business book. It's been revised, actually, and this is a whole book on a progression of a design to a piece of furniture. So this covers very good photography on all the steps and techniques I use from my design stage, the formative stage, and then the criteria I use to design furniture, right through to the making of the furniture. So these books are available on my woodskills.com website, along with I have several woodworking courses, from a basic woodworking course right through to furniture design course and right through to a design and making course that you actually get the book. We left off with this rough board, and it's so I've dressed one side and I've made it flat because this is actually the reference surface, and this is just to give you an idea, this is a rough side. The concept is to dress one side, create a reference surface, a flat reference surface, and use this as a basis to address the secondary side, or the thickness of the board, bring it down to the thickness you desire. Now you could do this with machines, of course, and this I tend to use machines more often than not for this stage, using a scrub plane for preliminary cleaning of the wood, removing all the rough part, and then using a jointer plane. I used a wood-based jointer plane. This plane I was using yesterday, I forgot to mention, is this is a plane I at one point in my woodworking career, I decided to create wooden planes. So just 2002, 2003, I started marketing some wooden planes, and these are a few leftovers that I've kept just for nostalgic reasons. But this is a wood body jointer from about 2002, 2003, so it's almost about 20 years old. And this is a wood-bodied smoother with my own design that I designed with White Mountain Tool Works back in the day. And I stopped doing that because I progressed on to furniture making. I attended a local school, Rosewood Studio, based in Elmont at the time, and I went through several weeks of training with visiting instructors on furniture making, and that's what I've gravitated towards, furniture making since. So back to this board, I mentioned that you need a long straight edge, longer than the board preferably, to determine if the board is flat. This is I'm using an aluminum level, which is fine. I mean, you could use I have real straight edges that are dedicated straight edges, but the aluminum level is fine. I mean, it's straight, relatively straight. So this board's doing really well, and I removed some high spots at the ends, and I had to work around this knotted area in the middle. So it works that way. It's fairly flat. And then across the board, you need to also measure across the board. And this is it's kind of flat. Now, if you notice, the board rocks, and that's because the opposite side, the opposite face hasn't been touched at all. And there's a convex. It's actually convex. And this side is almost okay, just a little bit of rocking. I need to remove a high point. So let's assume this is a good reference surface and this is a grain orientation. What we can do is, and I'll show you, we'll lock this in. I wanted to talk about the work holding that I've developed. This is a work holding system I've developed. And this plugs into a workbench with the dog hole that's customized to my particular workbenches. So it plugs in, locks in, and this actually this portion keeps it from rotating, and this is the dog hole that locks in. And I've also installed attached a leather face for better grip. So that's that. Then at the opposite end, I have something similar, but without the dog, without the dog part. So this slides along the face vise, and this serves as the tail vise. It actually works quite well with the addition of the leather cowhide. and it's this considerable grip, and I'll show you. Well, I was using it yesterday in the earlier session, so, but I added this guy to this one for more, increase the friction. I'll lock this in here. Lock it in the face vise. Now, I need to mention the face vise is on the left on this workbench, as is on most workbenches, and I'm left-handed. So this works for me really well. Now, if you're right-handed, you'll have to set up something on the opposite side, and I have some tail vices. I would also design some tail vices that work in conjunction with an end vise. So these move back and forth, and this serves as a tail vise. And I offer plans for that at my wood skills site. So this works better for right-handed people because you're using your right hand, of course, too. Now, in my case, this system works really well. It's left-handed, but if you're ambidextrous or if you can use your left hand for hand planing, you're fine. Back to this. Using this long straight edge, which is actually just a level, you can see the rocking, a huge amount of rocking back and forth. So I would say the rocking is, so I need to, if I want this board at this thickness, if I'm actually bringing it down to a different thickness, then it doesn't really matter. I need to remove this whole surface. But if I want to just flatten this surface and have it coplanar parallel to the reference surface, then we need to remove this high spot, and I'll do that. Different ways of doing this. I marked off the area here. Now what I'll do is I'll go back to my scrub plane, and so I've locked this in. It's kind of tight. So what I'm doing is actually removing my area within those lines within the lines that I marked. Again, I use with the scrub plane that I talked about yesterday. I use a diagonal stroke. Works really well. That's the kind of stroke you want when you're doing this type of work. Just a little more. You can see the work holding works really well. Probably the most difficult type of planing you can do is actually diagonal planing, because it causes the board to twist and rotate, and it's hard to keep straight. So you can see it's already flat. So that's how it's done. I mean, that's preliminary. But this middle portion, the convex portion, has been removed, lowered, and now it's relatively flat. And I'll just do a little bit of jointing here, wood body. So I'm not going to use the scrub plane. Too many hand planes here. So you get the idea then. Once you've done that, it's just a matter of going along the surface of the board with a long sole plane. I have a metal body number 7 jointer. Considerably longer than this, but this is fine. I tend to prefer wood body planes. They just glide better. I'll switch it up. I'll use the metal body one just to show you. I'm not sure if I've set this correctly. Yeah, that's good. Now the advantage of this plane is because the sole's longer, it rides over the hollows and the bumps, so it cleans that up a little bit better. It's important to have a long sole for that reason. A short sole would just go up and down through the hollows and the convex portions or the bumps. Now what? I'll lower the these metal body planes, this specific one. Well, it doesn't take much to flatten this. I'm not going to go through the whole process, but you get the idea. So this is probably, if you're going to invest in hand planes, a number 7 is probably one of the planes you should get, along with the number 4 or 4.5 smoother, and the block plane, or both the standard angle and the low angle block planes. Those are the 3 important planes, and there's a 4th one I need to think about. So please subscribe to my YouTube woodworking channel, where I share more of my woodworking techniques, my woodworking philosophy, my thoughts on woodworking, and all the challenges I've experienced, and I introduce some of the new forms of woodworking I've discovered. And also visit woodskills.com, where I have a good selection of my books, both in print and digital format, on woodworking, and all my online courses, and I also offer some woodworking plans. I have maintained a regular blog on what I've got going on in my workshop and in woodworking in general. So enjoy.